Unless you've been in hibernation throughout the entire month of August, you'll be aware of two things. Number one, No Man's Sky released. Number two, it turned out to be one of the biggest con jobs in gaming today. Now, there's a really good piece that was posted on the No Man's Sky Reddit by a guy called Meet Wayne Kerr. He basically compiled all of the lies that were promised about the game by either Sean Murray or in promotional videos released on YouTube prior to release. The reason I'm reporting on this now is because the guy unfortunately chose to delete the original article, which is a real shame because it's a really well researched piece, and I'm going to give to you basically all of the lies and highlights right now. So first up, in terms of space gameplay and space elements, landing on asteroids was promised. Here's Sean Murray. Yeah, at the moment you can land on asteroids. I'm kind of having a stab at his bottom of the Atlantic accent there. Destroying space stations and fleets. Take it away, Sean. Maybe you take out a space station or a fleet, or something like that. Or indeed maybe nothing like that, because that's not in the game either. Giant fleets of ships were seen in official YouTube videos, and large freighters that were actually moving rather than just sitting static. So the guy who wrote this, he said there ended up being no landing on asteroids, there's no way to destroy freighters or space stations, and fleets in the game are comprised of 3 or so ships. Freighters do not move at all, despite their engines always being on, which makes the game as a whole a little more, well, a lot more static and lifeless than we were originally shown. Let's talk about NPCs and NPC interaction. So there was supposed to be faction affiliation, and this was supposed to have some significance in the context of the game. Here's Sean. Different races have different attributes, and depending on how I'm playing, I might want to kinda make an allegiance with one or another. Or except you may want to kinda make an allegiance, but you can't, Sean, because you didn't put it in the game. There were also trade ships docking with freighters, which was in the promotional videos, but not in the actual game. Large-scale, joinable space battles between factions. Here's Sean. Like here, we're at the battle between 2 warring factions. I could join in, I could take sides. Well, you could, Sean, except that would all be in your head because, again, you didn't put it in the game. NPC ships launching from the ground. The official YouTube videos showed this. Showed the ships launching somewhere other than a dock. And in atmosphere, freighters with battling. So freighters travelling through a planet's atmosphere also being attacked. Here's some more Sean, because we can never have too much of him. If you're playing the game for exploration's sake, you might want to focus on that race, but if you're playing the game and all you want to do is kill things, there are more military-based races, so you might want to try and become friends with them. Well, you could try and become friends with them, but you won't be able to because you actually can't in the game. Having said that, being No Man's Sky, there is a procedural element to your interactions. The AI you talk to will know the name of the planet you're on and will reference it. They'll reference wanting certain things based on the environment they're in. They'll know if it's cold or hot or whatever. You'll see a reasonable amount of variety. It's not just pre-baked dialogue. So here's the author of this piece. Faction affiliations have been completely trivialised from what we've shown and seem to have been pared down to almost no significance. Sean talks a lot about how you could have a significant standing with factions that would meaningfully affect the game world. This is not the case. They serve nearly no purpose at all. They open up a few options with things like shield and health recharges, neither of which you ever actually need for them for various reasons. You can farm words from their languages at a certain point, but this doesn't seem to be what Sean Murray was talking about. Also, there are no faction battles to join. Factions don't seem to have any interactions with each other at all, never mind having giant space battles. This is a huge disappointment. So let's talk about planets, stars, and the cosmos. Ringed planets. Do you remember seeing any of those in the game? Well, here's Sean. Yeah, we haven't shown that yet, but yeah, if it's in sci-fi and sci-fi book covers, we kind of need to do it. Except they kind of need to not do it because they didn't. Sand planets, these were shown in YouTube videos, official YouTube videos, but they did not seem to appear in the game. Planets rotating and orbiting around the sun. Well, in fact, this leads to the slightly more egregious promised feature, that is the technical possibility of flying between star systems manually. So Game Informer said, could you potentially fly to new solar systems? I think they probably meant star systems because there's only one solar system, that's the one we live in. Sean Murray said, yes, but nobody's actually done it yet. Well, yeah, nobody's actually done it yet because you can't actually do it. Here's a little bit more from Sean. The physics of every other game is faked. When you're on a planet, you're surrounded by a skybox, a cube that someone has painted stars or clouds onto. If there's a day-to-night cycle, it happens because they are slowly transitioning between a series of different boxes. With us, when you're on a planet, you can see as far as the curvature of that planet. If you walk for years, you could walk all the way around it, arriving back exactly where you started. Our day-to-night cycle is happening because the planet is rotating on its axis as it spins around the sun. There is real physics to that. We have people that will fly down from a space station onto a planet, and when they fly back up, the station isn't there anymore, the planet has rotated. People have filed that as a bug. Yeah, well, I guess Hello Games probably thought that was a bug too, because they seem to have completely taken it out. So, as the author of the piece said, planets do not rotate on their axis, moons do not orbit their planets, and planets do not orbit a sun. There isn't even a sun or indeed a star. It's just decoration on the skybox. The very thing that Sean said, no, other games do this, they fake it, we're not going to do this. Well, actually, yeah, that's exactly what they did. So, star systems in the game are only static planets hanging in space. Whether or not you land on the dark or the light side of a planet doesn't matter. Planets closest to the sun are just as likely to be frozen as the ones furthest away. So basically, all of these things that Sean was talking about, I mean, he's basically done the exact thing that he said that other games are guilty of. Let's talk about ships and flights. So there was promised that there would be some differences between ship classes. There'd be differentiation between these classes. That hasn't really panned out. Naming ships. Here's Sean. Ships are actually a discovery, just like everything else, and you can name your discoveries. And, of course, more natural flight characteristics. Well, you can't scan or name the ships. This is according to the author. And despite there being footage of somewhat complex flight in the game is relegated to practically autopilot in atmospheres and sluggish flying through treacle in space. But the big one is that ships are all functionally identical except for inventory slots. Basically, every other difference is cosmetic. So your trader ship is as good as dogfighting as your fighter, and so on. So yeah, it's again what Sean said and what Sean has done are two completely different things. Let's talk about trade resources and crafting. Resources depending on distance from the sun and environmental factors were promised. Here's Sean. You'll learn planets that are further from the sun have certain types of resources, planets that are closer have certain types of resources, or planets that have certain environments. The ability to play the game solely as a trader or solely in space, here's Sean. But you can also not just gather resources, perhaps you're the type of person who just never wants to do that because it just seems a bit laborious, or you just don't like visiting planets and you just want to play a space game, so you can do that if you want, just going from space station to space station. Crafting that has complexity. When we release the game, we're not telling people, here are all the formulas, we're just letting players loose, and a little bit like Minecraft, people can figure out those rules themselves. How about finding elements by checking the galactic map? If you're searching for an element, a great tool there is the galactic map. The first thing that's incredibly helpful is if someone has been to that system before, in visiting it they'll discover it, and then if they choose to, they will upload that information, and now anyone who goes to that system is going to know more about that system. Well, back to the author of the piece, all the complexity and depth in trade resources and crafting seem to have been cut from the game and replaced with incredibly simplistic systems with almost no depth whatsoever in the last few months. So, position of the planets do not affect the resources, neither does the weather or the type of the planet. It doesn't seem possible to play the game without landing on a planet. So that's really another bit of a porky right there. Trading is a paper-thin mechanic, and there's next to nothing to do with money anyway, even if you are landing on planets. Crafting is another thing that Sean has vastly overstated. You can only craft... If you can only craft the things the game has specifically taught you how to craft, how can there be some big community push to figure out how to craft them? Indeed. Let's talk about animals and creatures. So there were large creatures that were affecting the landscape in some of the official YouTube videos released prior to release of the game, and creatures were also doing things that haven't been seen in the actual game. For example, flying eels that were flying low over the landscape, large creatures seemingly bathing in water. This is artificial intelligence programmer Charlie Tangora. I won't have a stab at his accent because I've never heard him speak. There's a list of objects that animals are aware of. Certain animals have an affinity for some objects or over others, which is part of giving them personality and individual style. They have friends and best friends too. It's just a label on a bit of code, but another creature of the same type nearby is potentially their friend. They ask their friends telepathically where they're going so they can coordinate. Well, again, this has all turned out to be not the case. If you actually actually play the game, you won't see the animals attack one another or eat one another. All they seem to be doing is squealing, running, walking, pantomime eating, etc. And aggressive animals just rush at you until you kill them. Planetary surface features. So larger structures were shown in the YouTube videos, that larger than have actually turned out to be in the final game. Crashed freighters. There was a freighter crashed on the surface of a planet surrounded by sentinels in the official YouTube videos. No one has yet seen that in the game to my knowledge. Portals, structures have been found but not activated. So rivers were apparently talked about a lot, but there are barely even any lakes in the games. Let's talk about the Sentinels. Sentinels were shown in large packs in the official videos, maintaining your wanted level indoors. There was footage of a wanted level not being cleared by entering a structure. Ambient Walker Sentinels, just out and about in the environment and awakening in front of the player. So, yeah, they only really seem to come out 3 to 4 Sentinels at a time, not in packs. Again, none of this really seems to have any bearing on what the final game has turned out as. And let's just finish off with some miscellaneous stuff. I mean, I almost dare not say it because this has been so well covered, but let's say it anyway. Being able to see and play with other players. We've all seen... I'm not even going to bother to read out any quotes of Sean Murray talking about that, because we've all seen them. We all know that this is probably the biggest, fattest lie that has propagated about this game before release. Beacons marking points of interest with waypoints. This was seen in a YouTube video. Useful marking with binoculars. Hacking reinforced doors. Take it away, Sean. Well, normally what you would do is you would hack it. That would be the best way. It would be the best way if you could actually do that in the game. Radio chatter from inside your starship was seen in the videos, or indeed heard. Translucent glass on starships as well, rather than just black paint. So, so in the game, the beacons... they zoom out, but they don't mark anything. You don't need them to upload discoveries. So this is all kind of indicative of a whole load of stuff that was basically removed before the game released. Marking things with binoculars in the video looks very useful, but in the game, well, you don't get to do that. Being able to hack reinforced doors is talked about, but in the game the only way to get in is to blow them up, and radio chat and glass windscreens, well, yeah, minor points, but nevertheless, you know, we've stuck the knife in, we may as well twist. So, the 4 pillars of what was advertised to finish off with. So, exploration, planets are less diverse with fewer features. They don't seem to be more interesting as you move towards the centre, if at all. Pool of resources is shallow. It's spread more or less homogeneously among planets. There are no objects on planets that you will not have seen in an hour or two on your first planet, etc. Fighting, ship combat has been trivialised by the removal of classes and ship attributes. Large-scale space battles were cut as well. You cannot destroy space stations or freighters, as we've been told we could. You'll fight Sentinels and Pirates alone, all of which fly ships which are functionally identical to your own. Ground combat is only with a few Sentinels and poses no challenge. Trading offers few benefits outside of selling valuable items to upgrade to better equipment. There are few things you'd actually ever want to buy from a trader. Grinding for elements or rare items to sell is as far as most will ever go, and money quickly becomes useless in the game. You probably can't play as a space trader exclusively, and trading between systems doesn't seem worth the hassle even if you can. Surviving. Everything you need for basic survival is bountiful on every planet. Sentinels pose no risk. The only thing that poses any particular risk is extreme planets, but there's no incentive to visit those, as they've got nothing you couldn't easily find elsewhere. Not that the risk they pose isn't easily mitigated and or dealt with. So, as I did say that this was a very thorough piece, and I think you'll find that it has been. If you do want, there's actually even more detail on the original article, which I'll just put up on the screen here. Here it is. I'll put a link to this actually in the description box at the bottom. So if you do want to have a good read through all of this for yourself, you can do. Do let me know what you think in the comments below. Do also please hit a like and subscribe. That really helps us out. Thanks ever so much for watching. Lots more at youtube.com/ParallaxLive. We'll catch you in the next video.